So this would be the second semester, but the first semester started late. So the second semester will start late due to COVID decisions taken earlier.
Right.
So research is a compulsory project, course, compulsory course, and the deliverables, as you may have seen, or maybe I didn't put the whole thing in, is major research project portfolio, which is the capstone, their proposal presentation, and their actual research presentation.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, the defense, I'm making it a defense. I didn't do it a defense before because I had them present to just me. But this time, based on your thing, I think I will I benefit from some of the insights that I've discovered in this course and add that to it. And so,
what is the duration of this course?
it's a semester.
It's a semester comprises of 3 months or 4 months.
It is supposed to be 3 months, but it also depends on the attendance of the students.
Right. But do they have flexibility? Can they extend it to a particular time period?
Yeah, I will do that because my ultimate objective is to have every student succeed.
Right. I think flexibility is the most important aspect that we all must encourage. And I think that this is the topic for today's session also. Because unless you give flexibility, students may, or whatever is time framed, they may or may not complete it. This is what I have experienced. So it's good to have flexibility.
Sorry, the flexibility will be not just in the duration of the course, but but with the deliverables, deadlines of deliverables.
True. Flexibility in assessment also. Very true. So good to talk to you, Sita. So we'll have more feedback, more conversation with other participants too as the time proceeds. So I think let me begin with today's session so that we should be able to complete it in time. Today's session is basically a recap of the previous 3 weeks that the aspects we have covered. It is basically for all those who missed it and for all those who would like to have a revision kind of a thing. So let me just begin with recap. Hello, everyone. A hearty welcome to each one of you. Today's session is all about recapitulation of the main ideas relating to course design, followed by the learnings of the 4th week. This would be a good intensive session of learnings of the last 3 weeks for new learners. And for our experienced learners, it would be a refresher. Either way, this session would be sufficient for you to create an adaptable course design. It will be a learning experience for not only you, for all of us. As you present your course design next week, which is 13th of May, and I'm really looking forward to 13th May to have a view of or a feel of the course design that you will create. Though Sita has already given a broad outline, that's wonderful. First, it's the 0 week where I just expressed the meaning of being adaptable. Adaptable course, what is it considered as? It is the course that has both regularly scheduled face-to-face class meetings and significant online learning activity that replaces some of the class meeting time. Such courses must have 50% reduction in class meetings compared to face-to-face course. Such a course can easily shift between online and in-person learning. In this session, actually, I had explained what is considered as not a flexible course. That goes a little detail, but I'm only touching the main aspects of that week. One can have a view of the recorded version. It is there in the general section of the Moodle page. At its core, it means designing online components that can be used regardless of how a course is taught. It enables a flexible participation policy for the students, whereby students may choose to attend face-to-face class sessions or online synchronous or asynchronous participation. The instructor provides such instructional structure, content, and activities to meet the needs of students participating both in class and online that must lead to be equivalent learning outcomes. That is a must. Then in the first week, the discussion was on beginning with the end. How do we design the course when we have end point in mind? So what does it actually mean? It means that one needs to plan backward for designing a course. Backward designing is all about starting with desired learning outcomes of the student and working backwards through the kind of assessments you will have, the kind of learning activities you will plan, and the kind of content delivery you will decide for. Here, the idea is that assessment and everything else in your course gets aligned to the desired learning outcomes instead of creating learning outcomes based on what you are assessing. This approach enriches teaching and learning process. It is an important professional step and is well worth implementing. I'll just have a recap of very basic idea about the backward design. It requires 3 critical steps. That is, what do you want the students to learn? That is nothing but you need to identify desired results, or what should students know and be able to do at the end of the course. This is nothing but defining your learning outcomes. Second step is, how will students and the teacher know if they are learning? That is, you need to determine the acceptable evidence that students have achieved these learning outcomes. And these are nothing but having formative, summative, and alternative assessments. Step 3, what will the teacher and student need to do for students to learn? That is nothing but plan learning experiences, instructions, and resources that will help students be able to provide evidence that they have met the learning outcomes. What I'm trying to say is that you select the best path that gives the greatest probability of success in reaching the desired outcome. If you have not been currently thinking in terms of backward design, please consider applying it as you plan a single lesson or student assignment. It is well worth implementing. I'm saying this out of my experience. Next is, you need to identify the desired results. That is, the teacher begins by reviewing the learning standards that students are expected to meet by the end of the course or any grade. The instructors must ask these 3 questions. 1, what should participants do? It comprises of the lowest priority content information that will be mentioned in the lesson, unit, or course and is worth being familiar with, familiarity. Second is, what knowledge and skills should participants master? The information that fits within this question could be the facts, the concepts, the principles, the processes, the strategies and methods students should know when they leave the course and are considered important to know and do. Third, what are the big ideas and important understandings participants should retain? That's important. These are referred to as enduring understandings because these are the ideas that instructors want students to remember and retain after they have completed the course. By answering these three questions, instructors will be able to determine the best content for the course. Then is identifying evidence of learning. That is nothing but assessment, which is the second stage of backward design. Instructor needs to consider the assessments and performance tasks students will complete in order to demonstrate evidence of understanding and learning. In this stage, the teacher asks two questions. One, how do I know if students have achieved the desired results? Two, what will I accept as evidence of student understanding and proficiency? What I'm trying to say is that one needs to look for meaningful ways to evaluate student achievement. The focus must be on higher level thinking skills and practical applications. Care needs to be taken that assessments must be appropriately aligned with the course outcomes. Or simply put, if students should be able to do something, they should be assessed on their ability to do that thing. Or if students should know certain information, it is important to provide them with opportunities to convey their knowledge. Or else, one can refer to Bloom's taxonomy. I hope everyone knows about Bloom's taxonomy and have been using it almost in every course and every grade. It provides nothing but the levels of learning in a hierarchy. When one talks of assessments, the first thing that comes to mind are to prepare formative or summative assessments. Needless to say, everyone knows what are formative assessments and what are summative assessments. Formative assessments identify various misconceptions, struggles that the students have, and the learning gaps. And it is conducted through having a quiz or peer evaluation or individual reflection and so on. It also provides feedback to the students as well as to the instructors about how well the learning process is going. The process, it talks about process. Whereas summative assessment is designed to provide evidence that the students have achieved a learning outcome or gained skills or knowledge throughout the course, and it comprises of a standard test or a lab exercise or instructor created exams or having a final project, discussion forum, presentations, and so on. And one can find out the students' knowledge and skills. But it is not that one should use only formative or only summative assessment. Summative assessments must be used in conjunction and alignment with the formative assessment. An instructor can consider a variety of ways to combine these approaches. But need of the hour today is not formative and assessment only, but to incorporate more and more of alternative assessments. Simply because it's all about getting students to show how much they have learned by executing tasks. It's a method of evaluation that measures a student's level of proficiency in a subject as opposed to the student's level of knowledge. Because skills, adaptability are things which are in demand. So proficiency one has to develop among the students. And for that, such learning opportunities be provided that require students to communicate effectively. They must be engaged creatively, whether it is problem solving or whether it is critical thinking. They must be able to collaborate virtually as well as face to face. All these tasks utilize their analytical skills, of individual and is self-directed, where students take ownership of their learning and assessment, collect evidence of their learning over time through personalized learning plans. And such learning plans reflect opportunities for flexibility in where, when, and how they learn. So the crux is that the choice of output, the activity designed to generate that output, should be determined by the learning outcomes. So the instructors must think about options that are particularly suited for digital and remote delivery. Here on the slide, one can have a look at some of the ways by which alternative assessments can be prepared. Alignment is a must. To be more systematic in assessment, planning, and implementation, assessments must reveal how well students have learned, what we want them to learn, while instruction ensures that they learn it. For this to occur, assessments, learning objectives, and instructional strategies need to be closely aligned so that they reinforce one another. To ensure that these three components of your course are aligned, ask yourself the following questions. What do I want students to know how to do when they leave the course? That is learning objectives. What kind of tasks will reveal whether students have achieved the learning objectives I have identified? That's assessment. And three, what kind of activities in and out of class will reinforce my learning objectives and prepare students for assessment? That's nothing but instructional strategies. Such alignment also reinforces to students what needs to be mastered and helps them track their progress in the course. Also, students pay attention to what you test. So alignment is a must. These were some of the ideas that were focused during the first week, and two tasks were assigned in the first week. Task one is relating to introduction forum, where you are required to introduce yourself. You need to share some professional challenges that you faced during the pandemic. And I'm sure everyone has a story, and not even a story, maybe lots of stories. So you can share few. You mention your expectation from this course. You need to design a flexible, you need to answer the following question by completing it. Designing a flexible course is a need of the hour because, please complete it. And finally, somewhere you will find that you need to receive a grade. Here, receiving grade actually implies completing the task, and completing the task well, as very well mentioned by Sita in one of the forums. The second task in week one is about backward designing. You need to have a team. It's a team-based course, but I have seen there is only one person in one team. It doesn't matter at all. One can still join and can make your own team, and you can work collaboratively. If you feel you are comfortable doing yourself, that's entirely up to you. And you need to create a GDoc. Introduce your course comprising the course title, the logo of the course policy, the backward designing in the GDoc that you have created. You may refer to handouts that are given in the course for some kind of information, although they are not enough. They are just a pointers, but you can always look into various other sources. Web is full of such things. And then finally, you need to post the link of this GDoc on the discussion forum. Only one member can, if it is a team, only one member can post the link. If you are only one in your team, then you can just post the link. So these were the tasks given in the first week. If you have not done, you can do it still, there is a time. Week 2 was all about creating a mixed map. All of us have noticed that education has changed dramatically. As a result, there has been a sudden shift from traditional to online teaching, resulting in a tremendous rise of e-learning. Remote learning has already become a new norm. Teachers have been facing challenges due to lack of resources, lack of technical know-how, lot of uncertainties, loss of connection with the students, with the colleagues. Not only that, even on reopening of the campuses, there are uncertainties, like there may be fewer students who actually attend the classes due to variety of reasons, or normal classes may be held temporarily. This is uncertain. And it's virus today, tomorrow it may be war, it may be terrorism, it may be flood, anything can happen. So we as teachers, as on today and in future, needs to be prepared for multiple scenarios. So emphasis is on mindful teaching by adopting such learning models that enable flexible movement between remote and in-person experiences, and make classes, assignments, and assessments as resistant to disruption as possible. So, for such kind of a flexibility, it is the best to have a plan and to create a mix map. What does it mean? Mix map is a visual presentation of a style of education in which the course components are shown through a Venn diagram, which enables a flexible participation policy for students, whereby students may choose to attend face-to-face class sessions or online synchronous or asynchronous sessions. No matter which participation format is chosen by the learners, teaching and learning activities should ideally present content effectively and professionally, must engage learners with generative learning activities, must use authentic assessment to evaluate student learning. How do we do that? When we are talking of mix map, it shows that it's a intermodal learning environment. And one needs to manage such an intermodal learning environment. I agree. It is not so easy, but it requires a lot of planning and organization. And one can always make it possible. We all know that in most cases, faculty have more experience teaching in the classroom environment than in teaching online. So not much change is required for the classroom teaching, but definitely more effort is required to design, to develop, and to facilitate the online mode of instruction, whether it is asynchronous or synchronous. To deliver such a flexibility in providing a course, the instructor needs to plan for its organization. The instructor needs to plan for the communication modes. the instructor needs to plan the role of an instructor in such multimodal learning. The instructor needs to plan various learning activities and of course, assessment and feedback. So organizing an online course is just as one would plan for a traditional course. It's not difficult, but obviously you require some modifications. The instructor needs to plan the number or the size of students groups, as you may not know how many students actually show up in the classroom. It may otherwise complicate planning activities if such planning is not done. It is relevant specifically for online. In all the learning modes, effective instructional approaches must be implemented. The multiple forms of presentation of content by the teacher, comprising of text, audios, videos, newsprint, and so on and so forth, as well as content which is generated by the students through discussion forum posts, can be delivered through LMS if it is online synchronous, and must be incorporated in all other modes, whether it is face-to-face or asynchronous. Similarly, for online asynchronous, the entire instructional content is streamed through class recordings and recorded messages using either the installed technology and or with the support of audio-visual specialists or maybe teaching assistants. So by having such a planning, no one will be left out. Regardless of the participation mode, the instructor also needs to organize the entire course content into units with subunits, create a weekly document that summarizes everything you will need for the week, including live sessions, recorded lectures, links, assignments, and so on. Also, one must consider where online assessments fit in. Having a central hub where students can access everything they need is very, very important. It's better not to rely on social media for communication purposes. Rather, one must provide an active learning platform for communication and course delivery too. One needs to decide for various tools like an actionable learning outcome template, like worksheets, like PowerPoint templates, mind mapping tools, collaboration tools, planners, and so on. You need to determine what content should be delivered to students synchronously and what learning can be supported asynchronously. You must have a combination of both methods for effective online teaching. The key is to play to the strengths of each approach. So far as the instructor is concerned, the instructor needs to prepare. In order to ensure a smooth start to class, the first step that must be taken is to decide for video conferencing platform that you will use to connect with the students who attend your class remotely. Having a backup plan is a must in case there are connectivity issues or technical issues. And for that, one can include having multiple options to connect to a session, like having another computer or having a mobile device or a tablet or using alternative collaboration tools. If either of these don't work, like Google Drive, to have students work asynchronously, one may ask several questions to oneself to plan for the sessions, like what should be done before my first class? How do I share material with my students? What is the best way to set up the classroom? How do I ensure that my students feel engaged in the class? How do I encourage collaboration in the class? How do I handle exams? How do I manage students' presentations? What about hands-on experience? How do I support fully online students? There may be few more, but I think these questions are a must. When it comes to the role of an instructor, one needs to be very effective. And to be effective, you need to shift your mindset from being just an instructor to a community manager. Because being the sage on stage doesn't work in online classrooms. Even the most riveting of lectures won't translate well in an online environment, since it's hard for students to passively stare at the computer screen for 50 to 60 minutes. Instead, shift towards becoming a guide on the side. You need to help the students and create a sense of community and engagement. So be a community manager. That is, facilitate activities and group work. You can become more of a community manager by giving shorter lectures, by breaking up the class time with interactive learning activities, or assigning group work in breakout rooms, and visiting those groups to monitor how collaboration is progressing by having a quiz or having a poll and soliciting students' feedback. Incorporate group work, that is essential and it is enjoyable too. Incorporate short audio clips or videos for assignment purposes. Create online games or having students create their own games. Providing the option of open assessments where students choose from a range of possible assignments. That reminds me, when I'm talking about creating games, I had a student in my class once who created a game which taught social emotional learning among the students. It was remarkable. It was a story of father and daughter relationship. That was excellent. So getting students to create presentations. Consider creating spaces outside of class, such as a discussion board or social media page, where they can talk about common interests. Let them have some free time, they enjoy it. Also remind students that they are a part of a larger campus culture and alert them to non-academic activities and resources. Share links to webinars and virtual events that may be of interest to them. Further, whether it is face-to-face or online, the precious class time can be used most effectively by flipping your classroom where the students are introduced to the content beforehand. That's how you can engage your learners. Synchronous engagement can be used to apply knowledge through problem solving and case studies, or by discussing course concepts in depth. It is important at the same time to balance content delivery with interactivity and time for reflection. It is recommended that the time to present information must be kept to 10 to 15 minutes, which must be followed by interactive component. One must incorporate breakout rooms for various reasons. One must include photos, audios, videos, real-world examples, which they enjoy a lot. So regular use of these activities also help you to pinpoint where students are struggling and which concepts need revisiting. And this data then can be used for providing feedback. Asynchronous learning is useful if students are unable to maintain a specific schedule. So make the material, readings, assignments, quizzes, etc. accessible to them in a single place. It will allow them to explore topics in depth and at their own pace. Discussion forums, one-to-one communication through emails are simple ways to create engagement if much of the learning is self-directed. That means one needs to be constantly in touch with the learners and they look forward to it. In thinking, though, through how best to incorporate synchronous methods into your curriculum, one must make efforts and take time to review the course syllabus and learning objectives for the particular semester. Once again, you need to ask few questions to yourself. Do you have ability to teach using both synchronous and asynchronous methods? That you need to ask yourself. If so, are there components that can be recorded for students to view on their own schedule? What is essential for synchronous delivery? How will students access readings and assignments? How do we ensure that students in such courses are learning both with each other and from each other? So one needs to thoughtfully consider both the synchronous and asynchronous elements of the courses and how these elements integrate to enhance student engagement. Thinking through these elements can help shape an effective plan and identify pedagogical as well as technical gaps you may need to address. While making up the structure of an effective course, whether students are online or in person, the most meaningful experiences are those in which the learners are actively engaged, in which they feel responsible for their own learning, in which they have significant control over their experience. And for that, the learners need to go through a journey of discovery. So once again, it's alternative assessments. Let them discover, let them explore. They love it. And the purpose is served. When it comes to assessment, you need to consider the ways in which you intend to assess your students. The purpose of designing assessments that are inclusive and equitable is to ensure that any individual or group is not disadvantaged for any reason. Assessing student learning and the progress of learning can be very much same in all modes of instruction. In the classroom, as well as working with online students, learning progression is often assessed informally, where instructors may interrupt a presentation for a quick quiz or to ask questions or conduct a poll. It's something very common. For asynchronous online learning environment, instructors can make use of open book exams, group projects, and culminating summative assignments to test student mastery of the content. Student choice is another important element. Providing options, whether in terms of topics or format, can motivate them while giving them more room to exercise creative problem-solving skills. One must note that there may be additional challenges to the instructor relating to technology, but timely feedback promotes learning and improvement in the achievement of course learning outcomes. Here is an example of a mix map that I used in my classes. This is about the topic where one needs to learn the comparative analysis of India's economy with the China's economy. And this is how I followed. You can just have a look at it. It was face-to-face. It was asynchronous as well as synchronous. You can just have a look. There were key concepts were introduced for 15 to 20 minutes in the video format. Text was also provided, assignments given, timings also I have mentioned here. It was online. Case studies were discussed through threaded discussions. Also, technology was introduced through short videos. Face-to-face, the same concepts can be explained by giving a lot of real-world examples and case studies. There are quite a lot. And then one can have follow-up and critique and so on and so forth. So that comprises of the main ideas that were covered in the second week. And the assignment of the second week was to create a mixed map comprising of synchronous and asynchronous interactions in your existing GDoc. You can also prepare a weekly grid to demonstrate the mix map to have absolute clarity. Third week was about creating engaging learning activities. Here, the emphasis is on how to engage them, because it is said that learning is not something done to the students, but rather something students themselves do. So they need to have significant opportunities to develop and practice not only the intellectual and motor skills, but also interpersonal and social skills. So the instructors need to pay attention not only to the content, but also to their thinking processes. So learning experience design needs to be created, whether it is in the group or in person, face-to-face or online. Sorry. And while constructing these experiences, there has to be engagement with the instructor, there has to be engagement of the students with other students, there has to be engagement of the students with the content. If you actually look around, you find that everything is a learning experience. It is not limited to just a formal classroom situation. It also implies that learning experience designers have unlimited potential in this real world. So one thinks that what is then the requirement of designing a learning experience? So the easiest way is to once again work backwards from the desired outcome and ask, what does someone need to know in order to be able to do this? What do they need to be able to do in order to complete this? What equipment or resources must they have in order to deliver the objective? So there has to be interaction, as I told you. Once you have content with you, you have structure, you can start to examine how to deliver that content. Will you use video, audio, or text? Will it require practical component? Two considerations that you must keep into account here. The most varied the learning methods are, the more likely they are to be engaging. Too much video or too much text dependence, for example, can destroy a learning experience. And second is, the learning methods should be appropriate for the outcome. Don't choose a video if only practice is going to get the learner to where they want to be. Then this is something very relevant. It's all about creating peaks. What does it mean? We all know that memory is unfair. And every time we remember an important experience in our life, our brain usually only selects the most intense moments of the experience and its ending. That is called peak and rule. So we tend to remember peaks, intense moments, whether they are good or bad, happy or sad, and its ending. So one needs to create peaks while creating learning engagements. That is the challenge. But how to create peaks, that one has to decide. Because with this practice, we generally don't do. We make students feel comfortable. And we make sure that there is right kind of a PowerPoint presentation, there is right notes and right exercises to be done and all those things. It all goes great with the class, but where we don't create a memory by doing all that, because great is never enough. To create any memorable experience, you need to create intense moments, not just great moments. So you need to have interactive simulations. One can just refer to the recording of the third week, where I have explained in details what is interactive simulation. Not only that, one can also go through the Bloom's taxonomy and emphasize on cognitive domain. I think everyone knows about cognitive domain, where intellectual skills and abilities required for learning, thinking critically, and problem solving gets developed. through various ways. One knows that remembering is the lowest, and creating is the highest skill that can be created, that can be developed. And then one can have a mind map and the concept map. This also I have explained in details in the third week. You can just go through this broad tabular presentation of how remembrance can be developed, how understanding can be developed, how application can be developed, how analytical skills, evaluation abilities, or creative abilities can be developed. Various activities can be sort of one can think of and can opt for. You need to ask once again various questions. What is the objective of intended learning outcome of this activity when you are planning for a learning activity? What courses or syllabi have a set of course objectives? How long the learning should take? Will the activity be individual, collaborative, or both? Which media and technologies should be used? How will the learners get feedback on what they have learned? How will the learning be assessed? How will I motivate students to participate in the activity, and so on? Then, while facilitating the learning design, these aspects will prepare you to for the challenge that go with the facilitation of engaging learning activities. You need to identify the category. Then you need to select the technique. That is, how are you going to develop analytical and critical thinking? And then you need to define that activity. You need to give basic description of that activity, identify its connections, define its benefit to the students. You need to identify the skills that they must have, the skills that you must have, the activity placement, whether it has to be what will be preceded and what will be following this particular activity, and so on and so forth. You need to define the techniques and what work needs to be done in order to have this activity to take place. And then there has to be some reflection and evaluation. You can please check the recording once again. These are various guidelines that are there to focus on relating to adaptable design. You can just read the slide. It gives entire details. So after having analytical aspect of all those things, these are certain technologies that we would never like to drop. Even if we are back to our classes, we will follow case discussion and simulation, which will be replaced by lecture. We will follow reflection and experiential learning, replaced by reading. We must have word cloud and role play, which is replaced by infographic, and dynamic table and charts, interactive and drag and drop capabilities for student presentation, gaming and team discussions for video, and of course, quiz and poll is always there. These are evergreen activities and must be included for their active engagement and for their immersive engagement. So the task given was that you need to identify the content to be included for synchronous and asynchronous teaching. You need to ensure that there is a balance of activities to get the same learning outcome. You need to decide for a particular unit, create a mix map and weekly grid, and develop an adaptable course. Now coming to the fourth week, promoting flexibility. After having discussed backward design, mix map, and engaging learning activities, it is then inherent to think and promote that flexibility in learning is essential, because providing learners with increased choice, convenience, and personalization to suit their needs. I'm trying to say that the learners be provided with choices about when, where, and how learning occurs. So flexibility is very, very beneficial for the students. They are benefited as they are provided with full control and accountability for their learning. Rather than having to show up to a class as a requirement, they can decide and allocate time for their learning. It allows them to coordinate their education around their commitment in case they are working simultaneously or they are working in the evening. If so, it then ensures that they are learning at the best time and as per their capabilities. This ultimately leads to them retaining information and producing better results. Not only that, they have advantage of learning at their own pace, which can help to alleviate a lot of pressures. Teachers often speedily run through concepts and then follow up with a task that students are required to complete. This can pressure individuals to quickly complete the task, but it does not leave space for the students to ask any questions. If the students have not understood a concept or idea that the teacher has explained, they are not able to complete the task to the best of their ability. So it hinders their own learning. So the flexibility is a must. It allows them to slowly grasp the concepts and ensure full comprehension before moving forward. Also, it leads to have better grades. Not only that, it also shifts entire focus of education from instructors teaching onto the students learning, and is forcing institutions to rethink how students are being taught. Every student has a different learning style, but traditional education does not cater to them all. So by changing the teaching styles and the way the students are being presented with information, institutions can measure its overall impact and outcome. By providing students with the liberty to teach themselves and experiment with various learning methods, they not only become more accountable for the way that they are digesting information, but it also helps them to shift the responsibility onto the students. And they feel more responsible for their learning, and they are likely to be dedicated and therefore work harder. Institutions have also recognized the value and impact of online learning components and are implementing them into their teaching. So this not only helps to keep students engaged, but also saves time for the teachers. It allows for self-discipline and helps students to gain life skills that they can later implement within their workplace. So this is something that is often neglected in traditional education, whereas students do not prioritize self-growth. Providing an individual with option of how they learn is integral to their success. So it promotes adaptability. Flexibility may include appropriate choice relating to the time. That includes flexible entry and exit points at which study occurs. It is in the pace of learning, it allows the learner to control the pace of learning process, which may include study load, whether learners choose to be either part-time or full-time students. These are decisions made by the learners. The pace is learner-centered and allows learners to make their decisions about how quickly to learn. But at the same time, they sometimes lack the experience to pace themselves appropriately. Poor time management could lead to ineffective learning experience. In such cases, one needs to hold hands. Flexibility also includes decisions made by learners where appropriate choices relating to the place, both physical and virtual, in which study is conducted. It includes face-to-face, synchronous and asynchronous mode of instruction. These are largely the content that is studied. So flexibility in learning provides opportunities for presenting content in new and innovative ways, using the combination of media as well as delivery modes. While the use of text is still widespread, content is drawn from a wide variety of sources that include but not limited to graphics, multimedia, interactive videos, audios, field trips, animations, simulations, learning from their peers, engagement in projects, programs, explore programs of study that are grounded in the real problems. So content is created by the learners too. Social media such as blogs, wikis requires learners to learn to write, and more important, to read and be read. And they feel very proud when they are read. They can work in groups, collaborate, create content, share their work with online audience, and so on. There are a lot of benefits if flexibility is being provided to them so far as place is concerned. It also provides content. It also provides opportunities for presenting content in new and innovative ways. So the use of text is widespread. It is effective collaboration is there. One can have personal experiences, virtual tours. I've just mentioned all these. Simulations, collaborations. Individuals can also do it. Projects, multimedia, wiki, content. So there is a lot of choice available with the instructors, choice available with the learners, and one can promote flexibility with themselves as well as with the learners, that the way they can learn. So one needs to have a reflection. After having flexibility in time, pace, place, content, the instructors need to exercise thoughtful choices. These choices are not totally open, but these are within the boundaries of institutional commitments. So you may consider your own unit and course that you teach and reflect what aspects of these dimensions do you offer in your course or in your unit. To what extent do you offer these dimensions of flexibility, and how do you provide it? If you are not providing flexibility, think over it, and you can always include at every step in every aspect. There is a lot of flexibility so far as learning styles are concerned. Everyone knows that learners differ in their levels of motivation, interest, prior learning, learning style, language capability, ability to self-regulate their study. It also allows for serving students with special needs and accommodates the varied cultural dimension in learning. So, though it is so difficult to have a different teaching plan for each different learning style, at the most, teachers can be aware that every student will not learn in the same way. And it is not sensible to adapt one's teaching strategy for all the learners. There has to be a mix of pedagogies. There has to be a variety of instructions which may cater to everyone. But it is complex, I know. But not only that, complexity also arises when the class sizes are too large. And it is not possible to pay attention to each individual in such a manner that each individual learner learns effectively, but at least one can be aware of and can adopt a mix of various pedagogies to cater to maximum number of students. So once again, you may reflect, consider your own learning style. How does your own learning style affect the way you teach? Have you considered some things that you can do in the classroom than just lecturing? Have you considered some things that you can do so that learners can bring in their experiences or learn from each other? These are very, very relevant and important reflections that one must ask. So is the case with assessment. There are on one continuum, there are lecturer designated assessment, all which are shown in blue color, that is closed final examinations, objective tests, set essays, or practical exams. These are lecturer designated ways of assessment. And there are negotiated assessments, which are learners contract, which are in the form of learning contract, in the form of self-assessment, in the form of peer assessment, in the form of peer review. So one has to decide to what extent flexibility can be allowed from lecturers designated assignments to negotiated assessments. Negotiated assessments are basically where students negotiate with the lecturers how they should be assessed. So how much flexibility is required at this end? One needs to decide. And it is relevant, it is important, it is advisable that there has to be a movement towards negotiated assessment for their benefit, for instructors' benefit also. Once again, reflection. Please consider your own unit. What is your rationale of flexibility that you have applied in your unit? How have you balanced flexibility related to time, pace, place, content, learning style, assessment, collaboration to suit your student cohort, your disciplinary needs and unit objectives? Would you be able to place this information in a matrix? After presenting so many aspects, I just come to the conclusion that there are too many questions that one needs to ask oneself before designing a course, whether it is relating to the style of learning, whether it is relating to the content, the modes, and so many aspects. So please have a relook of So please have a relook of all the questions that one needs to ask. These are very, very relevant. And we need to keep modifying, keep asking ourselves in order to make the learning effective. As on day-to-day basis, expectations are going high. As day-to-day basis, more and more new skills are in demand, and we need to be ahead of these skills. We need to be ahead of all the developments that are taking place, not only from the industry's point of view, not only from the workplace point of view, but also from the learner's point of view. As learners are also, having newer ways of learning, they are more aware, they are more smart as compared to our generation when we were young. So I hope you have enjoyed this presentation. I hope you have some points as your takeaways and will definitely incorporate in your course design. And I'm sure you are all working towards your course design. Please feel free to ask any questions that you have in the session, or best is to put your questions in the discussion forums. I will be very happy to respond to your queries and also learn simultaneously. And I'm really, really very excited to see all of you present your course design in the next session, which is scheduled for 13th of May. If you have been able to complete it, wonderful. If you have a broad guideline, you can still present. But when we converse with each other, when we communicate with each other, we tend to modify our own learnings. And that is what the whole purpose is, to have such a course. Thank you so much. Anyone is willing to please unmute yourself, and you may give any suggestion. Anyone having any question? Okay, so I think I'll just end this meeting today and look forward to the next meeting where you all will present.
Question. What mode should we present in? How should we present in what?
Through Zoom meeting.
Oh no, I meant should we do a PowerPoint? Should we do in what way should we present?
Yeah, you may
What
prepare
format then?
Yeah, you may have a PowerPoint presentation. You may have a
Okay.
PowerPoint presentation
Okay.
or whatever you are comfortable with. The whole idea is to know how you are doing. That's all.
Okay. So we could also share a Word document.
Yes, of course you can. You can. The link is already there on the Moodle page. I'll share once again. So you join the meeting on 13th of May. We all join and then you can present. I'll just sort of will be a moderator of the session and you all can present.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. See you on 13th May now. Bye. Bye-bye, all of you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.